What's up, Guerrilla Social Workers? Welcome to the Guerrilla Social Work Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Ranga Moore, and yours faithfully, Mace Warren. Jeff and I are both forensic psychotherapists that specialize in the clinical treatment of folks involved in the criminal justice system. We love sharing our misguided musings with all of you, and we thank you so much for your ongoing listenership. The boys sit down today to discuss sex offender restrictions and trick-or-treating. This leads into a discussion about imprudent supervision practices. They wrap up the episode talking about none other than mannequin rape. You won't want to miss this. So without further delay, yeah, man, I was thinking about adding a new addition to the podcast room, though.
Listening to some New Edition?
Yeah. So I got this New Edition CD.
Yeah. Dope.
Right. And dope. Dude, when was New Edition like a thing when we were kids? Or was that before us?
I think it was after us. Yeah, I think that's for like...
We're still here, man.
Oh, yeah. Point taken.
After us.
Like we were growing up, I think, by the time New Edition got popular, right?
I don't know. When did New Edition? Yeah. What were...
Because we had like...
Was it R&B? Is that what it was?
It was like New Kids on the Block stuff.
No.
Like In Sync.
No. It was... No, New Edition was like...
New Edition? R&B.
They had that... yeah, it was like... I think it was...
Wasn't it a boy band?
Kind of, but it wasn't like In Sync. I mean, it was the... Okay, I know what you're saying. Boy bands have like boy band music. Mm-hmm. New Kids on the Block was clearly like... What's
a New Edition song?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You brought this up.
You brought the CD.
Yeah. I love CDs.
Yeah.
Buy a CD these
bought
days.
This dope CD. New Edition.
Yeah. No. But no, I got for my birthday. My sister drew me a picture. You want to see this?
Yes.
You gotta be able to guess who this is, though. Shout out to Monty Bardsley. This is my second artist rendering of hers. She's a legit artist too. Check that out.
She is talented,
dude.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know and who can't see, this is Trent Reznor, the lead singer of my actual favorite band, 9 Inch Nails. So, yeah, but that...
Man, I didn't know she had the talent.
Bro, dude, my whole family is talented when it comes to drawing.
Yeah, you can draw, huh?
I can draw, yeah. I kind of gave it up.
You just thought it was a waste of time.
Yeah, I did. I mean, she took it to... she's had a few art studio things that I've went to. They were really cool. So, yeah, but I mean...
That's awesome.
Yeah, somebody just said, draw this. You know what I mean?
Man, that's really good.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about was, I was kind of like, remember like when, I can't even remember what cartoon we were watching. I think it was just some new Disney one or one of those Illumination ones. And you just saw like the water, and like somebody's, hey, can you draw that? Just the animation is just so sophisticated, you know what I mean? And it's like, it looks so like realistic and everything these days compared to like when we were kids.
Dude, like those Pixar?
Yeah,
the water is what looks unreal.
I know, but dude,
it looks real.
Dude, go back and watch like Fievel Goes West or The Secret of Nim. I'm like,
pretty brutal, huh?
Welfare animation.
Yeah.
Get this shit out of my face.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch this.
Dude, I'd have to like, from what I remember, yeah, it is pretty basic.
Yeah,
animation in those.
And I used to think it was so cool, like so time consuming, that they'd draw stuff. Yeah. And now I'm just like, oh, come on, give me this computer stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Southern nonsense.
Well, weren't movies like Lion King drawn though?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I know that because it's no Pixar, but that was pretty good.
It was aight. Yeah, dude, Scar was the man in that show.
You like Scar, like Gaston? Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I don't know why I dig the villains, but
Gaston wasn't even really that bad of a guy.
Yeah. No.
Not really.
Yeah, no, he was all right.
Yeah.
He was, but dude.
Just a little bit flirtatious.
Well, I know, but here's the thing though. This is what I'm saying about Gaston. Like if anybody argues this is him being the best villain, I mean, come on, man. Yeah, a little bit flirtatious, a little bit rapey,
Maybe a little, yeah.
I love how he said he ate 5 dozen eggs a day. I'm like, 60? Damn, bro.
Dude's yoked.
Yeah, but I mean, that guy was hardcore. I mean, he would, without any pause at all, he's like, yeah, I'll just fight a beast. I'm like, what, dude? That's a beast. Like,
I think it's kind of admirable.
Yeah, I wouldn't fight a cat.
No, yeah.
A beast.
We did do that man versus beast thing. We didn't even put beast up there.
Yeah.
You think he could beat a beast?
But if Gaston's in there,
yeah.
it's just a subcategory of animals, a beast.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of rapey, I was gonna talk to you. I was gonna get your thoughts on a couple of they were pretty I don't know, like they're I don't know if the word is silly, or misguided. Misguided might be a better stories that I was looking for. I really wanted to kind of dial in and figure out what was going on. One's obvious, the other one's not so obvious, and I kind of wanted to get your take on this whole thing.
Why? What's misguided? The intent behind the implementation of a thing.
Yeah. So a lot of the times when we work with clients, and whether it's juveniles or adults, that have a sex offense, I think people try to simplify a way to manage their behaviors, and sometimes by doing I don't know, like little tricks or using technology to buffer that. So let me give you an example. A simple one is, I mean, I think you worked with me, and you've probably heard this before, but with juvenile sex offenders, if I have a juvenile in my home and maybe his victim's in the home too, and then they lock the door from the outside, right? I mean, practical, because what do you think they're trying to prevent there? Their parents are locking the door from the outside. Yeah. Entrance, they're probably.
Oh, you're saying that parents are locking it from the outside.
Locking him in his room from the outside.
Okay. Grounding. Yeah.
But then I'm also like, that's a major fire hazard, dude.
That's a good point.
Dead.
Yeah.
If there's a fire that starts. Yeah. Or sometimes putting alarms on those really, loud.
That's a lot of go-to in safety planning.
Right. Which historically, some of those little things, I just don't know how well. I mean, I'd like to see a statistical report on how often that has prevented, a sexual reoffense, because that tends to be, a lot of the offenses that we see are very opportunistic, and that doesn't really provide an opportunity. Not to mention, it kind of shifts the attention away from the offender, to the technology. I'm just going to manipulate this and kind of figure out this,
because purely external.
Right. And not helping them kind of change their thought process in the meantime.
So first off, I agree with you, but devil's advocate, that's one of those things that'd be impossible to measure. How many times have alarms prevented a sexual assault? Who knows? Right. And I mean, I agree with you. I'm just saying, who knows?
So then on the other end, I think some prophylactic measures, not those
like a condom. Yeah. that prevents
step
stuff.
Right into that. Yeah. I was saying some measures I think do, I mean, the example and maybe this is anecdotal, I don't know, but the example I was kind of thinking about was when some of our clients are wanting to use the internet and they have a no internet clause that's been put in place by either a judge or a board of pardons or, whatever. And their PO allows for some sort of compromise by letting them put a software on there.
Yeah.
That tracks their activity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now,
like a Covenant Eyes or a Net Nanny or
right.
Yeah.
Now the simple solution to that is I just get another device, right?
And that is what they do.
Right. I mean, it's a simple solution. However, I have when I have worked with clients, they especially when they're on the computer and they know, they've been tempted, but knowing that they're going to look at something and then it's going to go to their PO, help them use replacement thoughts. They're like, well, I mean, that would be cool to look something up that I probably shouldn't. But at the same time, if I do, there's going to be a report. my therapist might get a report, my PO might get a report, so on and so forth. I better not do it. So I think on that end, it kind of helped in their favor. And also, that's another thing is even ones who are searching innocuous terms, you know what I mean? Like I did a group one time that I just searched the word depression, and sure enough, like 3 rows down, there's some girls, jugs just sitting there. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I mean, what does that have to do with depression? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and what terms could you search that then turned into who's knows what? And that's helped them in the past. So I'm going to say it's all, like useless, but, I don't think long-term that's a really good solution to some of these things. So I question some of these when they come up, and I wanted to like kind of look through some of these.
Awesome.
So this was this was in the New York Post, among others. I love the New York Post. Dude, I'll share this with the YouTube viewers. I was like paying attention to over here. It's total clickbait on the right-hand side. Like just wait.
Pamela Anderson's getting divorced for the 5th time. Poor man, she deserves happiness.
I know, dude. Look at there's a movie coming out about her and Tommy Lee. It looks way good.
A movie? They made one of those already.
Not that kind of movie. It's about that though. So it's about the people who found that. Yeah, dude, it's a crazy story. Did you know how that all happened?
No.
So apparently, like there was. I guess they were moving or something like that. And then there was Tommy Lee had specifically said, hey, don't like this is really important. It was in a safe too. And, and somehow it got misplaced, and these guys were just going through their stuff. What was all this? And then they just found a video.
Wow.
Yeah. And dude, and then before you knew it, off to the races.
Whoa.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I've, and to this day, I've only seen like what has been on like news things, just like small clips or anything like that.
You respect your privacy?
No, that wasn't the reason why. I mean, I was curious, of course, because when all that was happening, I think I was like a young man, obviously. But I think one of my friends who did download it like ruined his computer because there was 4 million viruses attached to it. So I was like, and I was an idiot. So I was like, all I have is my dad's computer. I don't even know if there was private browsing back then. So I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I'll get in trouble. So, and then by the time I was like, I just time had passed. I wasn't really interested anymore.
Right.
So never mind. For those of you listening, this will be really easy. Otherwise there's some maybes. I love Kelly Rizzo reveals Bob Saget's last text messages before his death. See that? And then it tells you how many people clicked on it.
Oh, literally clickbait.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an article written by Josh Miller, and it says, Georgia sheriff violated sex offenders' rights with Halloween warning signs. So and there's a picture here. It says, stop, warning, stop. No trick or treat at this address. I love how he used word art too. He did that fade at this address. Double exclamation point.
That's right. There's some thought that went into that, isn't there?
Oh yeah, that took some time. You had to. I mean, that took some formatting too, because that's clearly in tables because of how symmetrical it is. And even took the time to put the dashes between trick or treat. I don't know if it's just ironic or what. A community safety message from Butts County Sheriff Gary Butts, Butts.
Yeah,
is that a joke?
I can't tell yet. Is this the Onion? He said New York Post, right?
Yeah. No, this is legit.
Babylon Bee.
Yeah, I checked this out on a few ones, but I mean, so for those listening, we do have some restrictions that are our guys even here in Utah but not like this. Like, I mean, it's pretty standard to
as far as a sign.
Yeah. No. I mean, they're not I don't think that our clients are. So if you have a sexual offense and your house is obviously registered, I'm pretty sure it's, and I don't know if it's a written rule or if it's one of those like, hey, do this, but I don't think they're allowed to decorate their houses.
Right.
And they certainly can't pass candy out.
Can't answer the door.
And I think that the one thing that we do, and this is legitimate, and you and I have heard plenty of horror stories on this, is that task force from they'll put a task force together in the local like police departments for that municipality and say, go out and, look at these places and see how they're doing or whatever. Not really the agents who are supervising them. Seems really like the agent supervising them kind of get the idea. They'll check up on more of the high risk guys, but for the most part, they just say, stay home. Don't mess around with stuff.
Yeah. When the other officers that maybe haven't been trained on like how to work with sex offense dudes, they go in guns blazing sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of weird. So this says, the article says a Georgia sheriff violated the constitutional rights of sex offenders by placing signs in their yards warning trick-or-treaters to stay away on Halloween. A federal appeals court ruled. Butts County, that's gotta be
fake.
Man, how is that possible? Butts County Sheriff Gary, or we're just
deviant.
Yeah. Or just immature.
Yeah. But. You see how that shit is B-U-T-T? There's 2 T's.
Butts County Sheriff Gary Long instructed deputies ahead of Halloween in 2018 to put large signs in front of yards. All 57 registered sex offenders in the county telling youngsters to stop and not to trick-or-treat at the addresses. 3 registered sex offenders in the county filed federal lawsuits claiming the signs violated their First Amendment rights. A judge initially blocked Long from posting the signs, but denied a permanent injunction and granted summary judgment in favor of Long. A 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals of the 11th Circuit reversed Judge Mark Treadwell's decision in an opinion issued Wednesday, ruling the oversized signs are compelled government speech and violate a homeowner's First Amendment rights. Look at that.
Compelled government speech.
Compelled government speech.
Oh, like in other words, like the homeowner is being like forced to send out a message about themselves.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Compelled. Like I'm compelling you to say something that you may not want to say.
Right.
Yeah.
So free speech isn't just that I can choose to say a lot of things, even if it's hurtful. It's also that you can't make me say something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, if you're looking at this, what, obviously you're trying to get, trick-or-treaters not to go to these houses, of course. Right. But so a couple questions come up, like, who the hell trick-or-treats anymore? I mean, my neighborhood's pretty cool about it. I can go trick-or-treating every year, and there's all kinds of trick-or-treaters, but I don't know what Butts County looks like. I don't know if there's, I wonder how many people are actually trick-or-treating, because it's just not, it's
not what it used to be, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a bygone tradition at this point, Well,
I mean, maybe even like another question is, how many sex offenses have happened as a result of trick-or-treating? Like, we know of one for sure. It just happened
this year.
Yeah.
Homeboy answered the door with no pants on.
Right.
Man, like the worst, most boneheaded decision on planet Earth,
I would love to talk to that guy. Like, what were you thinking?
I know.
What did you think would happen?
I mean, I hope that he was intoxicated, because that is just so
on candy. Just have a sugar high.
Well, you tell that to the judge.
Yeah.
Case dismissed.
Yeah. 2-minute Kit Kats, Your Honor.
He says, the judge says not guilty by reason of insanity, because that story's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, that'd be cool if that's how the legal system works.
Yeah, it does in my mind. That's how I choose to think of it.
Yeah, but I mean, when I'm thinking about this, I mean, I get, if the kid's not going up to the house and trick-or-treating, right, then you're kind of removing an element of risk from the equation, right?
Yeah.
But a couple questions come to mind, like, is that necessary if the client works graveyard shifts down at the factory or something?
Right. No. Yeah. It's a blanket external control,
right,
that fails to take into account. I mean, I guess a lot of factors, one of which could be just shift work. Well,
because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that you can look, it's public information. So if I wanted to look up sex offenders in my neighborhood, anybody can do that, right? But I think it's illegal if you make it like public notice. Like if you so let's say you and I lived in the same neighborhood and I looked your information up and I saw that you were a sex offender, and then I took it upon myself to print out your charges along with your picture, and then went around to the neighborhood and passed that out to them and said, watch out for this guy. That's illegal. You can't do that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And maybe the difference is that you as a private citizen can't do that, but because like in Louisiana, unless I'm remembering this wrong, a client of mine that temporarily tried to do an interstate compact to Louisiana told me that one of the requirements was that he had to purchase kind of postcard type things for everybody within some geographical circumference, half mile or something, and had to essentially blanket mail everybody in his neighborhood that he was a sex offender. And that was like from on high,
I've heard that before, and I've heard that like is that an actual thing though?
I don't know.
I mean, I've only heard people tell me that, and I've heard of the like legends, like in Florida, you have to do this or that.
Yeah. I don't know for sure.
I've never had that actually confirmed. I mean, I think it's a fun, potential urban myth to talk about, but whether it seems like you're almost, I would have to, and maybe this is just Utah, but I would think it would violate some of those rights. Cause like here in Utah, so if you wanted to, like, we can give it an easy example here. So if I wanted to look this up, and this is just in Utah, so perhaps this doesn't apply everywhere. I mean, I would assume something similar to this, and you have to agree to these terms and conditions. So whoever you are, if you're looking this up, you have to do this. And if you look at the fourth bullet point down, it says pursuant to Utah code, blah, 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 members of the public are not allowed to use their information to harass or threaten offenders or members of their families, and harassment, stalking, or threats against offenders of their families are prohibited, and doing so may violate Utah criminal laws.
Okay.
Now, I mean,
harass, that would be harassment.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is, I don't know if that means that because it says members of the public, does that mean like law enforcement can harass them?
I suppose so.
Seems. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it doesn't say it.
Just for us civilians.
I would assume that they couldn't. But so I realize you're taking away an element of risk, but kind of like how you said before. I mean, what's the implication there? So let's say, what if somebody's, I mean, I had the other day, these kids just come up to my door and they were selling like some nonsense from their pantry, like used flour or something. I don't know. I was like, oh, good. Entrepreneurs, even though there's a sign right on my door that says no soliciting, but I gave him $2 and said, be on your way, Rugrats.
Well, did you take the flour?
I'm sure I did. Threw it away or something, but I mean, yeah.
The used flour.
I can't even remember what it was. It's wet crackers.
Yeah. Thanks, kids.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. The local high school here, they came by and knocked on my door, and they were getting donations for suicide prevention stuff or something like that, and I gave them some money or whatever. Okay, so what then? I mean, is Halloween, Halloween, I get is a time of year when you're going to get a higher, frequency of people coming to your door. But what about on the off chances that somebody just knocks on your door and they're a kid coming through your neighborhood? Like you can't do that forever, obviously.
Well, one of the common rules is that the offenders can't go to a place where children are known to congregate. And so are they kind of looking at it in the inverse, in that like during Halloween, a person's house is a place where children congregate? I
suppose. I mean, I guess, but now you're putting the onus on the potential victim to avoid, to manage the risk in the situation.
I guess that's what that sign is.
Right. But, and then unnecessarily drawing attention to this guy who may or may not have any intentions. And,
right.
And plus the inference there is that if I open the door and I see, a kid, like, what happens then? I just turn into the sex offender zombie, like, kid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what, I would hope. I never try to get my clients, whether it's substance use or sex offense or anything for that matter, to deliberately put themselves in risky situations so they can test the skills that we're working on in treatment, I just take it for granted that they're going to have to deal with that at one point or another. Like that's what we always tell them. Don't worry about risk. Like it will find you. There's no way to avoid it. So you need to be prepared for it. But I mean, simply kind of doing those things, it almost, I don't know, if your house wasn't decorated and you shut the lights off, isn't that enough?
That should be, yeah.
I'd never go to any houses.
Well, because I mean, why would you say people should give a shit? Because most people are going to say like, better safe than sorry, even if it isn't the most effective or maybe slightly misguided intent. Like, why not?
Well, I'll bet we could find research and stats on how many sexual offenses happen on Halloween. And I'll bet if we dug deeper, we could figure out some information as to how many of those offenses happen as a result of trick-or-treaters knocking on the door and then a person pulling those kids in and, doing whatever they're going to do with them. You know what I mean?
Let's say we know for sure that it's happened once.
Yeah, for sure.
Like people might say it's worth it if it prevents one. I'm not convinced that it's not, but I know that a lot of these dudes, like overall big picture, social integration and, feeling a part of the community is one factor of many that serve as a protective factor against recidivism.
So that's kind of what I was thinking. Like when we're in general criminal recidivism too, like when we're thinking about, I mean, we've seen risk assessment instruments that you and I score these guys on. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, am I generally well accepted by my peers, right? And within that peer group, do I have, meaningful and mutually reciprocal pro-social connections with these people?
Right.
And not maintaining a criminal, friend base or whatever. And also, like, one of the ones was, what's the neighborhood environment in which you live, and do you have close ties to your neighborhood?
Right.
Now, those are all protective factors. And for those of you who maybe not known about this, a risk factor is anything that increases the likelihood of a crime happening again. Okay, so in this case, having no friends and wanting those friends and living in social isolation, or not having close ties to your neighborhood, or living in a crime-ridden neighborhood where there's a lot of like drugs, alcohol, prostitutes, crime, all of those increase the likelihood that a person's going to commit a future crime, sexual offense and or otherwise, right? So the inverse is also true. If, I have mainly pro-social connections, close ties to my neighborhood, it's a neighborhood relatively crime-free. I mean, I don't think there's any such thing as a neighborhood completely crime-free. And those are all, those reduce the likelihood. But the other thing is kind of protective factors are cool too, because it makes the client is very motivated to maintain those things.
Yeah, it's not just like avoid doing these things. It's maybe work towards enhancing these things over here, these protective factors.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you remember from our last podcast, we were talking about like, this has nothing to do with New Year's resolutions, but I think that you would find this in many of like studies that would say, on terms of like follow through, simply trying to avoid a bad thing is increasingly more difficult than getting to and maintaining a good thing. There's much more payoff for the latter than just avoiding a bad thing. So if you're just doing risk management all the time, really for our clients, they're just breaking even. They're just avoiding risk. And nobody like who's leading a normal crime-free, quote unquote successful lifestyle does that. I mean, when you left today, were you like stepping out your door and you're like, man, how do I not commit a crime today? What do I need? Like that probably was no. What were you focused on today?
I thought about, sound classic. It sound like meatheads again, but
crushing it.
Yeah, getting to the gym, getting to work out in time so that I could have enough time to drive I had a dentist appointment today. Enough time so I could get there.
How many cavities do you have, bro?
0. Never had one.
Me either.
Really?
Dude.
Nice, bro.
Cavity bros.
That's right.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And I never even brush them.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah. So in other words, I mean, you could go on and on. You had a lot of stuff to do today. and you had a lot of obligations, you know, to which you were already, you know, mindset that you were going to follow through with those. So committing crimes wasn't even on your radar. I mean, you didn't have to manage risk because your life was moving in such a trajectory that it didn't even come close to risk.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now look, that's, I think the long-term effects of this is that's where we want our clients to be. And the more steps you take to, socially distance them, I think you're increasing the likelihood that there's going to be a few, not deliberately. I'm not saying this sheriff is going to cause future offenses, but I'm saying think twice sometimes about if there's an offender in your neighborhood and how you're going to treat them. I mean, in reality, what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to go beat them up? Obviously you can't. You're going to commit a crime against them, or you're going to watch them so frequently that you know, you're going to ruin your life in the matter. Like, I mean, sometimes just leaving them alone, letting them, you know, go back to business. And that's what we want them to be. If they're locked away forever and they have a life sentence, okay, nobody has to worry about that. But that's not the reality in which we live. Yeah, right. They're coming into the community, yes. Right? What's that statistic? It's like 99% of offenders are going to come back to the community. So
that seems right.
The reality is we have to get used to that. And I mean, you can stress yourself out as much as you want to about it. But you have to ask yourself, are the steps that I'm taking going to help this person not reoffend, or is it moving it more likely to that? Or am I just neutral on the whole subject? You know, I'm not saying you got to be their friends. I'm not saying you got to bake cookies and bring them over there. I'm saying, you know,
maybe just not intentionally isolate them further. And that's like a big red beacon to put a sign like that.
Right. Because especially with that word art, bro.
yeah.
I mean, seriously. I'm not trying to say that I'm not an idiot. Like I don't think that I'm not trying to say that people have a hard time with this, and you and I, this is our profession, and clearly we think about it differently, you know? And so the way we talk about it is just doesn't jive with people very well.
Right.
But so I'm saying that if most of the guys that we work with really appreciate that we just treat them like humans and we just treat them nice, you know, and that's and that we are nice to them in general. Doesn't mean we're their buddies. We're not inviting them over for barbecues or anything, but so anything that I can further distance that, I have to question is whether or not that's going to be kind of a problem. So, let's see. I wanted to see one more thing on this because I thought this was. So it says, after the warning signs were first put up, Long posted a message on Facebook. Oh, great. Saying the signs were only put in the yards of registered sex offenders. Even better. While saying the safety of the county's children was his top priority, which I bet it was. He also said Georgia law prohibits registered sex offenders from partaking in Halloween, which the appeals court noted was inaccurate. Partaking in,
what was inaccurate? It was inaccurate that they weren't allowed to partake in Halloween?
Yeah, the sheriff.
So they were partaking in Halloween?
No. He said that Georgia law prohibits registered sex offenders from partaking in Halloween, and the appeals court said that was inaccurate. Okay. I wonder how many, does Facebook have followers, or what is it? Friends. I wonder how many friends he has on. It's not him. It's probably like from the Butts County Sheriff Facebook page. Yeah. Probably 10 people on there.
Yeah.
No, you get him, Gary. Yeah. The ruling also noted that Long acknowledged he's had no issues with registered sex offenders in his county, including unauthorized contact with minors since becoming sheriff in 2013. Well, yeah, that even speaks to the idea that why would you need to do this?
I'm not seeing the need I don't know what to say about whether or not they're allowed to partake in Halloween or not. I mean, I believe that even if it's not the law. I mean, again, whether or not Utah allows, like, if it's written that our guys can't partake in Halloween, APMP certainly enforces that the same way they do that 1,000-foot rule. So, I mean, yeah, I don't, it probably looks good for the people that would vote him in, you know?
Yeah.
Like, cause on the surface, it does have like, I'm doing something about this problem. I'm protecting the children. It has that feel. And again, like even though you and I have done our best to lay down an argument as to maybe a different way to look at it, I guarantee you people listening to this are still like, yeah, no, but I don't care. I don't want it to even happen once. It's hard for people to hear the stuff we're saying.
Right. And this, especially when you look at that font.
That's pretty convincing font, bro. It's like he had me at the two-tone.
This is so what this always brings me back to is kind of that cognitive empathy versus emotional empathy. Like this is an emotional empathy play here.
Right.
I mean, I'm doing this because because think about it, when voters of sheriff, because I think all sheriffs are elected officials, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you have when you have an elected official and he's appealing to voters, and newsflash folks, politicians, I get they're trying to stop crime, but politicians' number one job is to get votes, right? That's because that's their lifeblood. Without those votes, they don't have a job any longer. So that's their number one job. And sometimes they have good policy as a result of those, right? Okay, excellent. Most, I assume, do good, try to do good. Okay. I don't think he was ill-intentioned here.
Right.
But most people who would be looking at that and you'd say, oh, even one time, who are they thinking about? They're thinking about their own kids.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say if you looked at, and again, this is one of those things, I don't know if you could ever research this, as far as what are the shaming factors that go into, sex offenders and how does that contribute to future likelihood of reoffense? In other words, like these were things that were done to them as a result of their status. Granted, I mean, they made that choice. They're dealing with the consequences, but then it was added on to them from an outside entity, a sheriff or the public or whomever. And then that made it more difficult for them to socially integrate. It made it more difficult for them to be a, prospering member of society. And as a result of that, they just discontinued using their strategies and then they reoffended. And I'm saying, well, okay, I don't know, where the statistics are on that. I don't know if you could ever measure that, but theoretically that starts to move in that direction. You know what I mean? And then so on a cognitive empathy level, I'm saying, well, so I need to consider how this is going to impact not the general public, but how this is going to impact the guys that I'm putting this on their house and really the long-term effects that that's going to have on them from doing something in the future. Not that I caused it. Of course, they get to make that decision, but
dude,
am I increasing the likelihood? Am I inadvertently making it more likely?
Even if such a study, that'd be a pretty sophisticated study to pull off and have it be accurate. And even if you were able to pull it off, if the dude that runs against Sheriff Long cited this sophisticated study and talked about preventative factors and referenced this amazing guerrilla social work podcast to his constituents, his ass isn't getting voted in.
Yeah.
The public's going to listen to Long. It's just because that's kind of how we as humans are wired.
Yeah. It was who's that? I never remember his name, but that guy who talked about empathy being kind of a bad thing. He's from Yale, and he gave the Willie Horton example, and that was like,
what was that again?
So Mike Dukakis put back when he was that was before our time, I think, or
mid 80s.
Yeah, we were little tykes.
Yeah.
Back when you just like voted for whoever had the best hair.
Yeah.
I remember they used to have that in school. They were like,
best hair?
No. They had that, but did you ever, when you were in elementary school, did they ever have you vote for the president? Like they held like a straw poll. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I remember one year I was so pissed off that Ross Perot didn't win. And I had no clue why I even voted for him.
But you were mad about it.
Yeah. I was like, he's rich.
Yeah.
What does that even matter? Yeah. I was like, yeah, he's just going to give us that money. I had no concept of it too. I was like, he's got millions of dollars. Who cares?
Like I voted for Ronald Reagan because it was like a ray gun, like a laser. Like a ray gun.
Yeah. Like, dumbest reasons in the world.
Yeah.
And the teacher, see, my students vote.
Yeah. Congrats.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But, so he, had some legislation that basically had, I think Willie Horton was he was convicted for life, right? So he was not getting out. He didn't have any possibility of parole. However, there was a program that was put into place and he was a violent offender. And, the program was put into place that if, they had demonstrated good behavior for a period of time, that they could be granted furloughs to go into the community and be with their family, but to return back to prison. And then when he left, hopefully I'm not butchering this, when Willie Horton left, he murdered, I think, a gal and maybe her husband, maybe their whole family. I can't, murdered somebody.
Did some bad shit.
Somebody or some buddies at that point. And then they, and that was the end of his campaign because wow. Gotcha. Who was running against him?
Dukakis?
Yeah.
George H.W.?
The other guy, sure. Yeah. Had said, look at this. Look, this is a direct result of his policies, right? And this is what happened. Now that was an appeal for emotional empathy because we wanted that could have been our family. That could have been us because these were strangers that homeboy killed, right?
Makes sense.
But I mean, what his, when they look back at this and they looked at like what that policy did was that it improved overall conditions inside of the prison. And in terms of like violent assaults inside of the prison, officers, those went down. Behavior was better overall because they were being granted this. Like all these things were it improved a lot of the things. And then you had one example. Right. And it was, I mean, it's tragic.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of how, some of those things work. You can't control for every single factor, and net effect, it was probably a decent policy. And one thing I've learned from working in corrections is I know you can say, oh, no, they get cable in there. They get TVs. They get video games. Yeah. They have a tablet. They could listen to podcasts. I'm like, okay, chill. I was like, because you know what happens when I know it's fun to think they're just in Azkaban prison, like on Harry Potter, and they just live in squalor. But those people, when they have no control over anything, become violent, and the people who have to work with them, and
as people do,
right, and the thing is they also like it's. Okay, so you want this to be completely horrible to a degree where a person kills himself. And then when somebody kills himself inside an institution, it's an outrage, how could this happen? And it's like, well, so which is it? Do you want me to treat him like a prisoner of Azkaban, or do you want to give him some comforts to the degree that, life is worth getting by on? And that was kind of a thing that a lieutenant, when I was going through the academy, was telling me, and he said that they come to prison as punishment, not for punishment. Right. Yep. I was like, oh, that's an excellent way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad enough here, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they get to play N64? Okay. I don't know if I care too much. Like, right. And if correctional officers...
It gives the correctional officers some leverage.
Right. And correctional officers that I'm friends with don't have to deal with getting, shit bombs thrown at them.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of okay with that. So might be singing a different tune if you're part of their family or something. So, right. Okay.
Here we
Dude,
go.
This one is bonkers, by the way.
I don't even know what to say to this.
So this is from The Independent. It says, Ivory Coast, the headline is, Ivory Coast TV presenter fined for glorifying rape after asking sex offender to recreate attack on mannequin.
Oh my God, dude.
I mean, it's like...
What?
It's like, no way did that happen.
Like on TV.
Right. The television host introduced the man as convicted sex offender. Then he beckoned his guest. He beckoned his guest to a mannequin. Can you show us how you committed rape? Holy cow. What came next outraged viewers in the Ivory Coast, who roundly blasted the segment on primetime show this week and urged the West African country's broadcasting watchdog to punish the production team. So this is in West Africa. By Thursday, a petition demanding the ouster of Yves de Mabella?
Sounds good.
Yves de Mabella, a popular commentator in the nation of 27 million, and sanctions against his employer, Nouvelle Chaîne
Ivoirienne.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Had amassed nearly 50,000 signatures. Protesters surrounded the channel's office in the commercial capital, Abidjan, man, we're horrible, holding signs that read, "Don't trivialize rape. Telecom authorities suspended De Mabellum from airwaves for 30 days. A court fined the host and ordered him not to leave Abidjan. Say that for me.
Abidjan.
Abidjan. Oh, yeah, I was saying it right. For a year under suspected prison sentence. Gee, Willikers. So, I mean, you realize that
what was happening though?
Well,
what?
Plus, like, you can't. Here's the thing I was thinking about this. You can't just like wing it. You know what I mean? When you're doing a show like that, like, do you remember when I interviewed with that gal on ABC?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't preparation there.
It wasn't scripted. I knew what was going to happen. Like, you know, and she had to get approval for all that too, you know, before. It's not like you can just like, you just tell the production manager, yeah, don't worry, I got it. You know, I mean, somebody had to sign off on that they were going to do that. Right. And I mean, I don't know. And obviously we'll read, hopefully they give us some context, but can you imagine what the news broadcaster was trying to?
So was it so it was a news show. I'm trying to figure, was it like a Howard Stern type of show?
Yeah, I guess context would be important, right? But even if it was
still terrible, but I'm just saying, like, what are we talking, like the equivalent of Tucker or Don Lemon type of show? Or are we talking like a Howard Stern type of show?
I don't know. I mean, it's popular, so who knows? I mean, it could have been, yeah, or Jerry Springer, Dr.
Like
Phil,
a Jerry,
something like that,
like a Jerry Springer.
But they didn't know to get close to that sensational, do they?
Hell no,
not even close. Rape this mannequin, like. I wonder if the guy went along. I mean, we'll obviously find out, but I'm like, so did you go along? Like, did you actually rape that mannequin? Like,
yeah. Well, and can you rape a mannequin?
Obviously not. Well,
yeah.
Mannequins have rights too, Jeff.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
But I'm just saying, like, wouldn't you just say, wait, what? You know?
Yeah. Or just, no.
So was there a conversation, like the production team had to sign off on that?
Oh yeah. Was it sprung on him? Was it sprung on the dude?
I hope not. That would be a dirty move. And I mean, I don't put that past journalists, you know, to pull some stuff like that. But I'm saying if it was anything like with me, at least I got some preparation. Can you imagine that conversation? You're like,
it could have been to try to shame him, maybe. Like, we're gonna make this guy look really bad. We're gonna have him confront the horror of what he did by embarrassing him on national TV, by having him act out this grotesque act.
Yeah. I mean, can you just imagine that? I'm like, hey, Jeff, okay, so thanks for coming on today. So before we turn the cameras on, they're heating up and everything. We'll get you mic'd up and everything. So what I was thinking was we can talk a little bit about your offense. And then I got this mannequin over here. And what I want to do, and I want to make sure you're cool with this. I just wanted to, you know what? I'm going to have you reenact what you did in the rape. And if you could, I don't know why you're laughing, but if you could.
Oh, you're serious? Okay.
Yeah. I want you to make it as graphic as possible. You mean
like actually, like physically rape the mannequin?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's a tough mannequin. So I got it straight from Mongolia. So
those Mongolian.
Yeah,
mannequins.
You've heard of Mongolian.
Yeah,
mannequins.
those Mongolian mannequins.
Okay, you got the idea. So it can take a beating and keep on. Okay, so that's what I'm. You're like, wait a minute, nothing comes after that. So I'm just like, how did that whole process get set up, and why wouldn't the guy just walk out at that point? You know what I mean?
I want answers to all these things.
Let's see what's going on here. The episode reflected a broader problem, activists said. As in the United States, sexual assault is rarely prosecuted in the Ivory Coast. So they're saying, as in the United States, sexual assault is rarely prosecuted. Data on the crime is scarce, and few perpetrators are thought to land behind bars. Okay, so it's underreported. In other words, yes, true. Victims, meanwhile, often face shame, financial burden. When they come forward, they must pay the medical test to collect DNA. Here, go away, dummy. Collect DNA evidence, which costs about $90 in a nation where a quarter of the people live.
The victims have to pay that. Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. A quarter of the people live on less than $2 a day. Holy cow.
Wow.
This is rape culture and it is atrocious, says Benedict Jones, president of Stop Au Chat Noir, an Ivorian group fighting to end sexual assault. The name of her organization translates to Stop the Black Cat, weird, is a reference to a grim term that girls in Ivory Coast hear as they grow up. Black cat is code for men who break into women's bedrooms, she said, and people say it like a punchline. The lurid television bit this week was an extension of that attitude, she said. The people laughing in the studio. Oh, no. The people who wrote the segment, the people who approved it, they're all part of it, Jones said. This wasn't an isolated thing with one host. Laughing about that. In the this is in August.
Oh my God, I'm reading ahead.
I know.
Holy shit.
Dimabella led his guest, who he described as a former rapist, to a mannequin under bright stage lights. The man had served 2 years in prison. Come with me, the host said. The camera will follow you. Dimabella proceeded to move the dummy into different positions. Holy cow. He invited the offender to demonstrate a series of attacks. He asked if victims had ever enjoyed the violence. He referred... Whoa. He referred to assault as making love. He inquired, how can women avoid rape? Advocates were quick to respond on social media. Women avoid rape when assailants choose not to commit it. Amen. All the while, the audience chuckled. Wow. What is going on? The clip blazed across Twitter as Ivorians shared their disgust. It's not a damn game. Someone posted, we were talking about lives destroyed. Dimabella apologized in a statement saying he was sincerely sorry to have shocked everyone while trying to raise awareness. Awareness to what?
That's just, sensationalism and shock.
He was promptly dropped from hosting the Miss Ivory Coast beauty pageant on Saturday, hopefully. NCI said it regretted the sequence and would not air it again. Ivory Coast Audiovisual Authority issued a 2-page statement condemning it. Punishing one man isn't enough to overhaul the thinking that allowed that segment to air, said Desiree Denio, secretary of the Ivorian League of Women's Rights. A coalition of activists are calling for the national focus on sex education, including television specials that focus on healthy intimacy and consent. So yeah, again, I'm kind of like, I'm just raise awareness to what though? What are you raising awareness to?
That's covering his tracks. We just did a podcast on like ways to raise awareness. Mm-hmm. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's him covering his tracks. What's he raising awareness of? He was trying to get views and it worked.
Yeah.
But what an ass. That's gross, man. Like, well, I've got a pretty jacked up sense of humor, but boy.
Well, yeah, that doesn't seem like funny. You know what I mean? Like what
the audience apparently thought it was.
Yeah, but why? Like what would be, I mean, I get the idea.
The shock of it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like you have a mannequin there and you're like, and what really happened, when all this was going down? How was he explaining? I mean, I'd like to see it and see for myself what was going on, but it's pretty crazy to think that people were laughing about it. You know what I mean?
Maybe it was nervous laughter.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
well, it is a bit, so like if you remove, again, audience perspective, if you remove the fact that they're talking about rape and you just see some dude being directed to act out sexual scenes on a strategically posed mannequin, again, removing the concept of rape from the equation, it's ridiculous on its face. That might have gotten laughs, but it's like, it becomes gross all of a sudden when you add the context to it.
Well, right. And when we raise awareness, so now if done correctly, I don't think this could have been like completely useless, because I think there is some, I don't know, educational purposes or good information that can come out of talking to somebody about, like their offense and maybe their motivations behind this. Now,
like we've done with Villains to Victory.
Right. And the funny part about that is I think some people are steered in the wrong direction. Most people think that you need to get into the nitty-gritty like details of the offense, which is absolutely unnecessary.
Which is what happened there.
Right. I mean, they were asking for, and I mean, so for people listening, why, because that's a thing of the past. We used to, back in the day, we used to, and when I say we, I'm talking about people who work with sex offenses, and we used to do what were called introduction groups, and it usually happened when a new member came into the group and everybody introduced themselves, and immediately after introducing themselves, they had to describe their offense, and in relatively graphic detail, right, and use certain words, and so why don't we do that anymore for people listening?
It's weird timing. I just talked about this in the staff meeting this week.
Good.
Yeah. I guess several reasons. One is that it doesn't impact recidivism rates. The idea is to build accountability. That's the idea of why they do those groups, is like get the person to own their offense and take responsibility for it, and maybe get some feedback from group members that might be a little more sophisticated in the treatment process to help boost the offender's insight as they talk about their crime. And so the idea is like, okay, if we can boost accountability, they're going to take responsibility for what they did. And in theory, they won't do it again because they'll have owned it and worked on it. And then the reality is that research shows that that's just not really effective. It doesn't do what we like to think it does. And if anything, it maybe enhances shame and potentially makes the person feel worse about themselves, which makes them care less about themselves, which makes them care less about others, which increases their risk to reoffend. Right.
I know the dialogue has always been that, you can't fix what's not broken. I don't think they don't acknowledge that they don't have, I'm pretty sure that client knows that their thinking process might need some tweaking at that point, right? But I don't know why. I've always struggled with this, is why the connection between, well, if I own it, whatever that means, and I take full accountability, that somehow that fixes it. You know what I mean? Now I can start working on it, when I've never really.
Well, maybe it's like this, like, if I go back to the New Year's resolution stuff, if I get out of the shower, see my fat ass jiggling, I think, God, man, I have really COVID shut down. I've wrecked myself. I have made bad health choices. I have stopped going to the gym. I have done these things. I let myself get fat. I need to get after it. I think they're coming from that angle.
Okay. Fair enough. And it's not as if when we talk to we don't talk. It's not like we don't talk to them about their offense. We do talk to them about it, but more so, I'm always much more curious and interested in the thinking process and the context that led up to that.
Yeah.
And looking for intervention points that, some of the skills we're teaching them could have been used. And then also I realize, what's the likelihood that the events of that particular offense are going to play out exactly the same way that it's going to happen again in the future? Probably slim to none. Right. You know what I mean?
But the thinking patterns that could play out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So context environmentally, and who the potential victim is, those I think will change no matter what. But the thinking process that got them there, and potentially the complacency that got them to a state of mind where they were capable of kind of justifying this, those are really what I'm interested in. And I think if a client is talking about that, that's helpful. I think that's helpful for other clients to hear that. I think it's helpful for them to see that perhaps, because we see consistencies in what a lot of our clients say: boredom, social isolation, risk factors that we've already talked about. I think it's useful for them to hear, here's what was happening in my life, and here's things that I need to continue to pay attention to avoid that from happening again. Showing the different positions as far as a rape goes,
that has no value.
Yeah, that doesn't do that. How's that going to prevent anything in the future?
It's like when we do disclosures during group, back when we would discourage that piece of it, of talking about the actual sexual acts, because it would sound like a hyper deviant Penthouse Forums type letter, and it's just skin crawling shit, and that's irrelevant to what we even were trying to accomplish back in the day. And so this is that souped up to gross, sensationalized. And I think the guy's backpedaling when he says we're trying to raise awareness and help women not get raped. Okay, so by showing them what positions a rape victim or a rape perpetrator made the victim do, that's going to help them avoid getting raped. How? Talk me through that.
Yeah, exactly. What's a potential victim going to do and watch that? And dude, that's not going to help whatsoever.
Right.
And I don't disagree with that. The assailants, that we need to be able to stop them. So on the same token, like, yeah, I agree with that. That's exactly what I do. Unfortunately, my guys have already done stuff, but if you had a would-be, future sex offender watching this, you'd have maybe considered this, fantasized about it, maybe watched some pornography that was depicting rape and, reinforcing that through masturbation. And now he's watching this. How is that going to help him either? How is that going to help him, like, man, maybe I probably shouldn't do this, or, think through a process of why, this isn't in his best interests, and obviously not in the victim's best interest, but like, how's it going to help anybody?
Damn,
like,
if anything, he sees homeboy on TV getting applause and laughter.
Yeah. And I'm sure he didn't get in trouble. I mean, just the host and everybody else, because he kind of was exploited, the guy who committed the offense,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
But, that is just so fascinating. So, really think twice, everybody, when you're considering, like, this is a good idea when it comes to some of those things. It just, maybe get some consultation on some of those things. But, geez, I wonder what kind of shows are going on over there.
We are here for such consultation. If any West African TV stations want to consult us,
so I checked our stats. We have exactly 0 listeners from West Africa. But
damn.
If you're the first, then go ahead and reach out.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, enough of that stuff. What a weird couple of stories, huh?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Well, I don't have anything else to say. Do you?
I'm done.
Cool, brother. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks. And thanks for listening to the Gorilla Social Work Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Moore and Mace Warren. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into all things related to forensic psychotherapy. As always, you can head over to utahsbesttherapy.com to check out our program and check out all the links and resources in the show notes. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and wherever you prefer to get your listener fix. Please share this episode with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating, which really helps us out. You guys are awesome. We'd like to stay and chat longer, but we're lying. Good night.